So today, I believe you guys know me. I'm Janaka, one of senior economist from the central bank. I'm the head of the money and banking division as well. I basically to take care of the monetary policy, the conduct of monetary policy, the technical support to the management. Right. So here, what we are going to learn today, the mainly money, interest rate, and the inflation, right? So, but I know these three, even though these three are isolated like the single component, but once you put those three things together, plus the real economy, then you see the monetary policy, right? Therefore, I will try, if time permits, I will try to go beyond these three major the topics and try to touch the monetary policy as well, right? The introduction and all, it's very basic, and I don't think that you need more explanation on the introduction part, right? So first, let's try to understand what the money is, right? Theoretically, money is everything. If you accept as a society, if you accept anything commonly to make payments, payment for goods and services, or if you want to do a repayment of your debt. So if you can use something that is called money, right? So therefore, you should have that general confidence. So whatever the instrument or tool what we use, right, maybe a fiat money, that is what we use right now, or maybe a old currency coin, right? So if you lose the confidence, right, the general public confidence, so whatever the central bank, even though they print, once you lost the confidence, they will not accept that piece of instrument as money, right? So take an example. So now we print 5,000 notes, right? So if person A doesn't like 5,000, it doesn't matter, right? So still central bank print money, right? If as a society, the entire Sri Lankans, if you reject 5,000, then the central bank has to think differently, right? So that means you don't have the confidence on your 5,000 note. Actually, one time it happened, we introduced a new note, 200 note, and there was a problem with that about the durability, right? So it didn't last for long, right? Therefore, naturally, we saw a debt for that 200 paper note, right? So the people didn't want to have that 200 anymore, right? And that is one basic example about money, right? Then you use money. Some people define money as wealth as well, the total collection of properties that serve to store value, right? So by accumulating some money, right, by accumulating some money, you can say I have this much of that, right, a stock. And also you are earning on monthly basis, right? So if you are a salary earner, so that's a flow. If you have a wealth, that is a stock of value. If you have every day, if you're earning some money, that that can be called as a flow of your income, right? Those are the basic definition about money, right? So in generally, there are few characteristics of money that there should be those. If you don't have those characteristics, then there could be a problem on the general public about the confidence, right? Let's take one by one. Acceptable by all in a country or region in or society. That's what I explained. So if as a society we reject any law, then it is not money anymore, right? So So we, even though we don't deal with dollars as whole, the entire world, except US dollars, right? Sri Lankans, they accept any Sri Lankan note or coin, right? That is the general accept. Then there should be another, the characteristic, that is the legal tender, right? So in Sri Lanka, the legal tender is Sri Lankan rupee. So you can't make any the domestic payment using any other currencies, right? You can't use gold, you can't use US dollars, you can't use Japanese yen or the sterling pounds or whatever the euro. You can't use those money for any domestic transaction. But don't mess it up. But there are few authorized the people or institution, they can do the transactions using those the international currencies, right? Like the hotels, maybe the shipping lines, right? Those are separate things, right? But in generally, if I want to make a payment to you, so I have to use Sri Lankan rupee. It's a legal tender. Then the durable. So take that 200 note example again. If you have to come to the central bank or a bank on very frequently to exchange your money, right? Exchange your money. So due to a durability problem, so you don't want to keep those notes anymore, right? Therefore, in general, right, across the globe. So the money that what we're using right now, you can keep those notes for a considerable long period, right? So once it's unserviceable, only the commercial banks bring those money to the central bank to destroy, and they replace with new notes, right, or the coins, right? So durability should be there, right? But so we used to have a different sort of different the money. We didn't have those the durable characteristic. Let me expand it in a bit, right, later. Then the divisible, right? In Sri Lankan rupee, we have, right, even though we don't use that sense right now, we have the 5 cents, 10 cents, 50, 1 rupee, 2 rupees, 5 rupees, 10, right? There are, so if you want to make a payment, let's say 150, you can easily make that payment, because that the amount that they are printed right now, you can divide any large value payment into small pieces, right? Divisibility is there. Then the portable. So you can easily take, let's say, 1 million in your pocket, right? The portable. So that is what it means, right? The limited quantity in circulation. So money is not freely available, right? That's why you and me are here. So you have to work hard to earn money, right? We have to work hard to earn money, right? So it's unlimited quantity. Otherwise, if it is like very common and freely, if you can have it freely, then you will see a different world, right? Any question? Yeah. See it. Okay, good question. Chamara, what happened to 2000? Actually, the same story, Chamara. The people didn't want, right? Because guys, even in our normal purse, the wallet, you can't have it, right? So it disappeared actually. The central bank did not print 2000 notes after the initial the bunch of papers. Same experience what we had for 200 as well. Good question, right? Then the functions of money. So I know you basically demand money, right? So you need money. What are you doing using those money? Right? There are major four functions using the money. Right? The first is the medium of exchange. Unfortunately, these are theories, but you have to remember those the major, like here the characteristic, right? Acceptable, legal, tender, durable, divisible, portable, limited quantity. Those are the characteristics of money, right? So unfortunately, in this the program, you have to remember those words, right? I'm just trying to explain it, right? Here also, you have to remember what these functions are, right? The medium of exchange. Since we all are locked down at home these days, right? We are basically having a very limited the transaction, right? Like not like the normal days, right? To buy goods and services, you need money, right? So if you don't use a credit card or a debit card, then you need money. That's a ban. I believe most of us buying goods and services from the small retail vendors, right? So you have to have a handful of money to do those things, right? That is the major, the function of money, medium of exchange. The next function is the unit of account. Unit of account. What does it mean? Unit of account. So you can measure any good and service or any instrument using money, right? This my phone is 100,000, right? Something like that. My laptop is 10,000, right? So whatever you can measure, this bottle of water is 50 rupees, right? Something you can measure most of your goods and services in terms of money, right? That is called the unit of account. That is common, right? Even the banking, all these assets and liabilities you measure as money, right? In the accounting principle. The next function is store of value. Store of value. So generally, money is the most liquid asset in the world, right? So I believe everybody knows the meaning of liquidity. Liquidity measures how easily the assets can be spent to buy goods and services, right? So money, you simply give money and take whatever you want, right? If you have an FD, you have to go to the bank, convert it to money, and you have to buy the goods and services. If you have shares, you have to using an app or whatever, you have to sell that share and take money and go to the market and buy, right? So if you have a treasury bill, or if you have a land, if you have a car, you have to sell it before doing the transaction, right? Before you're doing your day-to-day transaction, right? So that is called the liquid, right? So in this transfer, if you want to transfer any asset to money, to liquidity, it takes time and there could be a cost as well, right? So however, the money is the most liquid. There's no time difference and there is no any extra cost, right? It's very convenient, right? Store of value, right? You can accumulate money as an asset. The fourth or the final function is method of deferred payment. Right? This is very simple. The money that you can use those money to make payments, delayed payments, right? So basically, the banks, you guys lend money to customers, right? They pay the same money with an interest, right? So That is the basic idea of the method of deferred payment, right? When you consider a different kind of the money, right, you can see how difficult to use those kind of different money to make a deferred payment, right? I will explain in a bit when we discuss the BART economy, right? Now, is it clear? Any question on the function of money? Those are the major අපි කරන සල්ලි වලට මොනවද කරන්න බැරි කියලා ඒ වගේ සල්ලි වලින් කරන ටික තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. These are the major functions what we do using money, right? Let me, we have like 25, 6 people. I didn't hear anyone's voice, right? So I hope Rasika, you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make an interaction because it's you know that it's really difficult to do an online lecture while everybody is very calm and I can't see you guys, and also I can't all the mics are muted. So I just want to make sure that everybody is in the same table. Okay. So you can simply raise your voice at any point, right? Please stop me if it is not clear or if you have any technical issue or all, right? Then before money, before money comes into our society, we had a system called the barter economy or barter system, right? Where people exchange goods and services directly without using any intermediary good, right? It's just medium of, without any medium of exchange, they just exchange goods and services, right? That is the system called the barter economy. If you can remember in 2016, right? 16 or 18, I can't remember whether it's 16 or 18, 16, probably 16, right? India, they banned 1,500 note, right? So you know that India is a very big country. Most of people who live in the remote area, they have to come to a long way to reach a bank, right? So when the Indian government banned 1,500 notes, right? Most people in the remote area, they didn't want to accept those 500,000 notes during that grace period, right? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, they announced it 2016 a little early, like maybe 3-4 months earlier, and the 2016 December was the deadline for the last transaction. By that time, all the people, if they have any 1,500 notes, they have to deposit in their accounts and get a different, like 100 or 200 or whatever the different notes, right? That is the requirement of the government, right? So during that, let's say from August to December period, right, in 2016, nobody, particularly in the remote area, they didn't want to accept. So how did they do the transaction, the high value transaction? So in that, there were few articles, right? During those periods, people tend to use this barter economy, right? Basically, they exchange goods and services, right? Right now, we don't have any region or country that use this barter system, right? Before, so in simply, So under the barter system, let's take a village, right? One or few people, they only produce, let's say, rice, right? Paddy. They have the paddy field, right? So one or two people, they might be the fishermen, right? So if they want to, if the paddy farmers want fish, they sell their the rice to the fisherman and take fish. That is what the barter system is, right? So, but here there are some major the characteristics, right? So, if you want to eat a fish, right? If I'm a farmer who has, let's say, I have rice. If I want to eat fish, I should search fish as well. The fisherman should also be able to, or he should take my rice as well. If he doesn't want rice, then I can't eat fish as well, right? It's because it's a bilateral, right? There are some cases under the barter system. There could be a multilateral, like we have this multilateral net settlement system, right? So if I want, if there are three people here, I can produce my I produce my I produce rice, and I can give my rice to a person B. If B is a fisherman and the C is let's say he has what do you call dal, right? So if I want dal, but the person who make dal, he doesn't want dal, but he wants fish, right? So we can have a transaction between three of us, right? So it's by understanding this barter system, you guys know that it's not that easy. If you have money, you can simply go to the market and take anything, right? But under the barter system, it's a cumbersome process, right? So you have to search for the goods and services, and it makes you have to have a huge effort to find your own goods what you want, right? So that is what I explained here, right? You have those the explanations in wordings as well, right? Those are the limitation need for presence of a double consisting. Then absence of common measure of value, right? In money, it's a common measure, a unit of account. You can measure anything, right? But in the barter system, we have rice, we have meat, right? There are pigs, horses, and services, right? If you don't have a common measure, it's very hard to do the transaction, right? In the monetary economy, money plays that role. But so under this barter system, you don't have, right? Different people can use different, right? කිලෝ එකක් තමයි හාල් කිලෝ 100ක් chicken කිලෝ 10 ඒ වගේ මොකක් හරි there is no any standard mechanism, right, for a common measure, right? So therefore it has some limitation, right? That's why we don't have the barter economy right now, right? And the invisibility, right? You can't divide, right? Indivisibility, right? You can't divide. Let's say if I have a horse, right, I want to eat a chicken, right? Yeah. So how can I exchange a horse or pig with chicken, right? It's very difficult, right? So you can't divide to parts, right? So that is one limitation. Unfortunately, those I think they are in the slides and the note as well. Just want to make sure you remember this, the general, the key limitation, right? Then you can explain it in a very simple language if there is any question on those things, right? Absence of common measure of value and indivisibility of certain goods, right? the length of standard for deferred payment. You can't actually, you can't, I can't say you can't, but it's very difficult to, under the barter system, to use any sort of goods or services to make any deferred payments, right? So take an example. If you are exchanging a chicken, if you're exchanging chicken with uh, let's say I borrow chicks, right? 10 chicks, right? After 45 days, those chicks will be really big, right? You can't exchange that, right? So as a deferred payment, you can't use this barter system. And difficulty in storing wealth, right? If you are a farmer, right? Let's say you have a farm. So as the picture says, my bank balance. So he has cheap, right? So you have to have a huge space to store if you are a farmer, right? Say even rice or any sort of the goods that you produce, you have to have a huge space. Therefore, there is a difficulty in storing wealth. But under monetary system, even you can have millions of rupees in a very small place, right? Nobody can guess, right? So that is what I want to explain in the limitation, right? Then there were, after this barter system, let me check any question. Okay. After this barter system, there were a different the commonly used basically metal money, right? Metal as money, probably coins, right? Even still, our archaeological people, they are still finding some very old ancient coin, right? From probably in Anuradhapura colonial regions, right? So after this barter system, people want to have an intermediary, some sort of uh, intermediary instrument to do the transaction, right? Then, so basically the metal, people then what they actually commonly accept was it has some underlying value, right? Let's say gold coin, gold something, right? Or any kind of silver something, right? It has an underlying value, right? So those the metal types people use before this monetary system, right? Ancient coin, there are different, right? You have some examples in the slides, right? So you can read them. Then this paper money, right? Actually, the paper money it started from the barter economy, right? So after the barter economy, actually, people make warehouses, right? People make warehouses and they store their goods and services on those warehouses and they take invoices or receipts from the storekeeper, right? So without exchanging the goods and services, what people exchange those invoices or receipts, not the goods and services, right? So that is the initial point where the money introduced, right? But in history, the initial point what we refer or money is it deal with the Goldman Smith. They are the informal banker in first informal bank in the world. Probably they start with the gold, accumulating gold, right? If you have any gold, you can keep that gold with Goldsmith and they issue an invoice or some sort of a certificate, right? So if you want to sell it, you sell that certificate, right? You sell that certificate and purchase goods and services. So that is the initial point for this paper money what we are using right now, right? So in globally, um, now we are having this paper money. There we have a different e-money as well, but in generally, the most of the hard cash transactions are happening using this paper money, right? I believe you know who is the money printer in Sri Lanka, right? The Dilaro, we have the company, the international company in Vietnam. They print money not only for Sri Lanka, for a few other countries, right? Particularly for the African countries, right? Um, it's very high secured area. You can't go whenever you want, you wish to go, and so even the central banks, if we also have a limited access, right? But whenever we if you want to go there, so whenever we go there, and normally they don't print Sri Lankan money, right? Or different money if you are a visitor. Then let's move to the monetary system globally, right? So this once this different kind of paper money is in use, there were no any there was no any uh, regulator at that point, right? The best example is, let me explain. There are a few stories behind this. In America, there were few banks, short of banks like Cosmic, right? Ohio Bank, Columbus Bank, Kentucky, right? Different banks, right? What they did was they issued their own currency, notes and coins, particularly notes, right? But they also accept only their notes and coins. That means if it is Ohio Bank, they only accept Ohio Bank's notes, not the Kentucky banks or Columbus banks, right? So then that makes a problem, right? That makes a problem. So therefore, there was a discussion to have a regulator. That is how this regulator role came into the field, right? Right now, we have one currency or print issue, right? That is the central bank. Right? All others are users, right? If there are plenty of money issuers, what are the issues? Right? Let's say, in Sri Lanka we have 24 commercial banks, right? If 24 commercial banks are given the privilege to print money, what will happen? This is a very simple example. Let's say we have a commercial bank with the food chain, right? Or the supermarket chain, right? So that supermarket will only accept their money, right? If they are allowed to issue money, right? Very simple example, right? So therefore, we need a regulator. In globally, we wanted to have a regulator to regulate money supply, right? So, okay. So, what is the legislation for this regulation, right? You just want to make sure, right? I believe you guys are taking very short notes, right? The Montreal Law Act provides the background for the central bank, right? Montreal Law Act number 1949. So the act came, right? The Montreal Act is the governing body of the central bank governing law, right? So under Montreal Act, we have the powers to print money and control the money supply and implement the monetary policy, right? And also we provide the clearing and basic supervision as well, right? Even though we have a separate company called Lanka Clear to clear these monetary related transactions, right? The central bank also owns a large share of that Lanka Clear as well, right? That is a basic operation, right? If you have any question, just please raise, right? If I miss anything, I will explain it. Before we try to understand about the money, right? Let's try to get an overview, some very brief idea about the other different monetary definitions, right? So we have electronic money. That is one of our major involvement in Sri Lanka or across the globe, right? The people has a high tendency to move from this hard cash to electronic money, right? In 1987, if I'm not mistaken, was in Sri Lanka, one commercial bank introduced the debit ATM card, right? The debit, generally ATM cards are, right now, general ATM cards are considered as a debit card as well. Initially, all the ATM cards were not debit cards. So, but now most of, I believe, 99.9 ATMs are debit cards, right? What are the characteristics of a debit card? You have to have money, so some balances in your account to do the transaction, right? You can withdraw money, you can make payments using the debit card, maybe post terminal, or you can transfer your money to another third party using your card, right? Debit card, right? And also it's a medium of exchange, right? Without giving money, you can go to a supermarket or a retail shop. If they have a post terminal, you can make that a particular payment using your debit card without giving cash, hard cash, right? So those are the basic functions of a debit card. But debit card, you can't make a deferred payment, right? You can have a different platform by using your debit card, but indirectly you can't make a deferred payment, right? You can't make. The credit card, the difference in the debit card, you have to have a balances, but in the credit card, you have to have a credit limit, right? Not the balances, a credit limit, right? So the banks have to basically, if you have that credit limit, the commercial bank approve your retail transaction, right? It's very convenient, right? That is why most of the commercial banks are offering different kind of promotions for the credit card holders, right? To make almost all the transactions to the credit card, right? More major difference between the debit card and the credit card, the monetary balances in the debit card and the credit limit in the credit card, right? When you consider the debit card against credit card, the credit card is more like a liquid, right? And I have noticed that there are places, right, they don't accept debit card but credit card, right? So I don't know why any electronically it can't be, but there are. I have come across some. Companies, they don't, some stores, they don't want to use the debit card instead of credit card, right? Now, in very recently, we have e-wallets, right? electronic payments, right? In most of the commercial banks right now, they have their own e-wallet, other digital, right? You may probably using an app, right? Basically, what you need to do is either you can link your credit card, right, or a debit card to that e-wallet, or you can simply convert your hard cash into e-money, right? So easy cash, those are e-wallets, right? So you convert your hard cash into electronic money, and using that electronic money, you make your payment, day-to-day transaction. That's the difference. The virtual currency, I can't see any major difference between these, but the virtually, it's a digital currency printed, or there is no any underlying asset, right? There is no any underlying asset. It's printed and minted digitally in a server somewhere in the world, right? So read it, the point carefully. The virtual currency is a digital representation of value that can be digitally traded and function as a medium of action, because you can make a transaction or you can do a payment using the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency, right? And it's a unit of account. If you have 1,000 Bitcoins, you can say, I am this much of rich, right? This much of rich. And sorry, store of value, I'm this much of rich. It, as a unit of account, you can say my let's say this laptop is this much of Bitcoin, right? Because you have an exchange rate for the Bitcoin, you know the price, you can have a common measure for that. But there is no any country in the world they accept the Bitcoin or this virtual currency as the legal tender, right? So there are discussions in the table, but there is no any country they have declared the virtual currency as a legal tender in their status, right? That is a major point that you have to remember. And also, it is not issued by a regulator. It's a private company or the website, right? So no central bank still, they haven't issued. The Bank of, the People's Bank of China, I heard that they are going to issue their own, the digital currency, right? Once they happen, but I'm talking about the general, the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies, right? And there are some, even the Joe Biden, not Joe Biden, the Donald Trump, he also against this the virtual currency. I didn't know I didn't hear anything from the new government about their stance on this monetary, the virtual currencies in US. But there are serious concerns about the money laundering, those kind of the criminals, the terrorist financing, so they can easily, because it's in the website, right? You can just share like you just sharing your information. You can easily pay and share via a platform, a digital currency, in a very easy way to do those kind of illegal businesses, right? In the mobile cash, let me ask you a very simple question. Any idea about the mobile penetration in Sri Lanka? Anybody has any idea? Don't hesitate if so. I don't know, even I don't know. I believe most of you are bankers or professionals from somewhere. Whenever I got a chance, I am teaching experience. So if you are learning something new, you can ask any silly question, right? So even you can give a very silly answer as well, right? But once you study, or once you uh, adapt to do those the businesses for a long time, you can't raise those kind of silly questions, right? Therefore, please, I believe you guys are new to this money and monetary policy subject. Therefore, if even it's a very a preliminary answer, I don't mind, right? Therefore, just talk, right? So I believe if you look at yourself, right? So you have more than one SIM card, right? In Sri Lanka, mobile penetration is 143%, right? That means no, more than 118 right now. Look at Pushpa. Thank you, Pushpa Kumara. In 2000, if I can, I will try to get that number for you, right? The place where it is. ගොඩක් කට්ටියට මම ටීච් කරනකොට this what I might be wrong, but the problem what I can understand, they don't know where this information is available, right? Where this information is available, right? So the mobile penetration. It's in the annual report, chapter 3, right? It's in the central bank annual report, chapter 3. There is a separate chapter for separate section for the communication, right? Those are the basic information. I'm just නැතම් පොඩ්ඩක් පාළුත් වෙනවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ඒ හින්දා මම මේ කියන්නේ. This is the key. This is key social indicators, right? Just giving the number, right? So the transport, electricity, communication, right? It's 100, including the cellular phones. It's 143, right? The internet penetration in Sri Lanka 79.9, right? This is 2020 numbers, right? So even though what I want to tell use that number is, even though we have this high mobile penetration, right? So most of people right now, they have a smartphone, right? I believe maybe out of that 143 phones, maybe at least 60%, maybe 70%, they're having a smartphone, right? But still in Sri Lanka, the mobile cash using even though we are having this high mobile penetration, the usage of mobile cash or the electronic payment is still at the low level, right? That is why still, even though you guys, the banks are closed, why still people are gathering, right? In front of the door, right? So the main the problem, they don't have that confidence to switch to a different payment methods, right? There are people, they still believe this hard cash, right? So so the best, let me give you an example as well about this mobile banking and the easy monetary systems, right? Payment systems. Kenya, right? So Kenya normally, it's a very poor country, right? It used to be a very poor country, but they used to have the best mobile payment system in the world, right? So I can remember, because I was in payment and settlements department before I joined to the economic research and masters. I was also in one meeting. We also had visitors from Kenya this they call M-Pesa, right? It's very amazing. People, the they there were plenty of robberies on the road. The people don't want to bring cash, right? And also, the mobile phone is also one of our major popular instrument at that time. This is in 2013-14 period, right? So government and the telecom company, they use that opportunity to have a mobile payment system, even though their bank penetration is at really low levels compared to Sri Lanka and other countries, but still people trust that mobile, right? So now it's one of a major mobile payment system in the world, M-Pesa, right? You can read those things in the internet. So I will skip the Bitcoin because I touched that when I talked that virtual currency, right? The gold standard basically it's another collab system. If somebody wants to ask a question or
Yes, sir.
yeah, please. Somebody. Yeah.
Thing is, how do we create that Bitcoin? There's a technology under that, no?
I didn't get your question, sir.
How do we create that Bitcoin?
How do you?
Create the Bitcoin?
It's in the web actually. It's in the web. It's a virtual thing, right? There is no any underliner. That's why if you look at that, the recent the behavior, the price about these bitcoins and all, there is a sharp drop recently, right? After Tesla announced that he is not going to accept the Bitcoin anymore, right? Overnight, that exchange rate dropped dramatically, right? So there is no any underlying asset. There is no any regulatory authority behind the issuing. Right? It's just a computer created money. Very simple language.
I heard that I heard that there's a machine called that blockchain, something like that, and
Yeah,
can
yeah, there are. So it's not. I mean, it's not like an, Google or any normal website. They have a what do you call it? The software based some sort of a website. It creates that money.
So,
Yes,
so
John.
are we allowed to trade with Bitcoin?
No, no, Chavara. I think if you can remember, even even our payment and settlements department some time ago, they announced that. So we don't take any responsibility for any kind of any transaction that you do through this the virtual currencies, because still since we don't regulate those transactions, we don't want anybody to lose their money. Because let me try after the break. Let me try put in the exchange rate differences, right? So I can't remember the no. I don't have the numbers. Last within a week it dropped dramatically. So again, හරියට ඔයගොල්ලෝ අද දැන් රුපියල් ඩොලර් එකක් it is 200, right? You have dollars right now. If it is 100 tomorrow, what will happen to you? You will lose half of your wealth, right? So that is what exactly has happened very recently. So maybe I have no idea, honestly. Maybe few can manipulate those kind of things right now. Therefore, there should be a regulator anyway, globally or whatever. There should be a separate regulator. For that, I think the Facebook, with the support of Visa, Master, and 28 companies, Amazon, those major companies in the payment-related companies in the world, they wanted to create their own the digital currency, right? Looking at the bad side of the available um, uh, virtual currencies, but it didn't go through. I think there were because Donald Trump slashed it out at the beginning. After that, I didn't see any development. Anyway, we at the central bank also we are very closely monitoring the development, right? How, because if at one point, if any central bank accept the digital currency, then there will be a huge challenge for the central bank as well as the bankers, because people want to invest on those currencies as well.
So
Yes, Chan, go ahead.
now, if a virtual currency comes into effect, let's say Facebook currency, what will happen to our rupee?
That is going to be a challenging question, Chandra, because now everybody has a Facebook account, right? People might think it's very easy to do the retail transaction through the Facebook as well, right? Then we have to have a different regulatory mechanism for that. That's what I said. It's very challenging for both banks and the central bank. It's not a very straightforward answer, I know.
Yeah, if someone want to buy that bitcoins, that we have to give local currency or some other foreign currency and buy it, right?
Exactly, a dollar, probably dollar.
Okay.
I don't think they accept rupees because Sri Lankan rupee is not a convertible currency, right? So it's only acceptable in Sri Lanka. You can't exchange. Good questions, right? Good questions. I like that the dialogue, right? Okay. Oh, I'm not sharing that slide, right? Please raise your voice if it is not clear, right? I like it, right? Don't think that you are disturbing me and disturbing others. I know in the campus, there is a theory called you should not ask question from the professor, right? So the campus guys, I believe you have an example that experience in, but here you can't. You can stop me at any point, right? Give me a second. Okay, now we are moving to a demand for money, right? So I explained the characteristic and the functions of money. Now we are trying to understand the demand for money. I believe you know you want money and how do you demand for money. Basically, the demand for money is your willingness to keep money, the hard cash, right? Here, the demand for money means willingness to keep money as hard cash and coin, right? Willingness to keep money as hard cash and coin. So take an example, right? Let me right now we have very low interest rate, right? It's very relatively historically low interest rate, right? The deposit rate is less than 5, around 5% level, and the lending rates are around 8, 9, 10 levels. And the primary lending rate is primary AWPR is around below 6%, right? 5.6 last week, right? That means yesterday, right? If the interest rate is low, so do you want to have more hard cash or less hard cash? What is your answer for that? Anybody can answer. The interest rate is low. Let's say, okay, let me put it in a different way, right? So you sold your car on Friday, right? You sold your car on Friday and you have your normal deposit rate is 5%, right? So do you want to keep that money for a couple of days and see whether there is any interest rate change? So one example, right? I'll take another example. Let's say the interest rate is high. Let's say 9%. Your deposit rate is 9%. You sold your car on Friday, 5 million, right? So will you keep that money with you till Monday or next week without depositing that money in the bank if the interest rate is high? What is your choice? If the interest rate is high, you don't want to keep that money, that 5 million with you, right? Maybe you might keep a very little amount of money, right? But if the interest rate is really low, you don't care about that cost, right? It's because it's very marginal, right? The return is very marginal. Still, you will keep that money maybe few more days, right? To look at other investment opportunities, right? So the first chart here, the normal, the demand curve, right? Whenever you have a high price, right, you demand less, right? You demand less. A, right? Then now, yesterday, the petroleum prices increased, right? It's a huge increase, right? 23 rupees, right? The price goes up. If it is not um, if you can reduce your consumption, definitely you will reduce your demand for it, right? If the price is low, definitely your demand for that low price is high, right? The same principle apply for money as well. If the interest rate is high, you will not keep a lot in your hand. But if the interest rate is low, you will keep little more because the opportunity cost is less. Everybody got the point? Basically, the idea here is if the interest rate is high, you will keep less money because you are having an opportunity cost. But if the interest rate, the deposit rate is low, you simply don't care, right? So I believe everybody understands it, right? But I know that even though this is the low interest rate regime, it's very hard to have a big amount of cash with you, right? Because of the pandemic and all. How about the supply? Let me ask a different question from here, right? This is the demand for money against the interest rate, right? What is your demand for money against your income? How that relationship is? Who wants to talk? So just imagine your first salary. What was your first salary and the amount that you keep in your purse? Yeah, just forget about this ATM, credit card, debit card for the time being. Just assume that you don't have any kind of these electronic money, right? Probably. So compared to your first salary, now you have more cash with you, right? Take another example. These days, you can't do those kind of all these fancy use all these fancy the payment systems, right? Online ordering or otherwise you have to run behind the lorries, right? So to do that, you need money. Therefore, these days, you probably keep more cash with you, right? I will explain those things as well, right? There is the theory behind that, right? So with the income level, therefore, you have a positive relationship, right? You have positive, there's a positive relationship between the income and the demand for money, right? Again, මේ පැත්ත යන්නේ. So when you increase your income, right? When you increase your income, your demand for money will also increases, right? පළවෙනි salary එක ගන්නකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ purse එකේ තියෙන ගානයි දැන් salary එක මම හිතනවා ඒ වගේ 10 15 ගුණයක් වැඩි වෙලා ඇති. එතකොට තියෙන එකයි අතර difference එකයි මම කතා කරන්නේ, right? So whenever you have more income, you can, if you forget those credit card, debit cards, you will keep more cash, right? That is the relationship between income and demand for money. But in generally, with the interest rate, you have a negative relationship. Against the income, you have a positive relationship. Then the supply of money. Supply refers to the amount of a product that produces a firm willing to produce or sell, right? So this is the normal supply, right? Rice here, right? So at low price, the producer is willing to sell a low amount. But if the price is high, like today, right? Let's say Nado, Samba, right? 200 plus, right? So high prices and millers willing to sell a lot, right? That's why we don't have these the low price rice in the supermarkets, but the higher prices. They want to have a high profit, right? This is the supply curve, right? So take this. Take another example. There are periods that pumpkin price, right? Even you can have pumpkin at 5 rupees, the supply but here, but as a producer or seller, if the price is low, you will sell little. If the price is high, you will try to sell a lot. But in the agriculture products, this theory doesn't apply, because whenever you don't have that the house facility, right? You don't have, you can't keep those the outputs for a long period, right? You don't have that cooling facilities and all, right? The money, what is the relationship? It's a vertical line, right? Why? What is the reason having this kind of line? The central bank supply money, the print money, right? Therefore, that is why the main the theory, right? The central bank can influence and push this supply curve to here, or drag this supply curve to here, right? Now, using this simple demand and supply equation, right, you get the equilibrium. Right? The first chart shows the general equilibrium of a general good, right? General equilibrium. Demand curve is there and the supply curve is there. The point that crosses is this line provides the price, and this is the quantity. This is the general equilibrium price, and this is the equilibrium quantity. Then let's say banana, 100 rupees for one cynical annual calculator, right? It's the general equilibrium, right? 1 kilo of banana is 100 rupees, something like that, right? Here, when it comes to money, this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve, right? So it gives you the interest rate, right? That is the cost of money, right? So if central bank print more and more and more money, what will happen to the cost? It reduces, right? Because there is plenty of money there. This is cost of money, right? Not cost of living, no? The cost of living and the cost of money is two different things, right? So if central bank print more money, this line shift to right, right? This line shift to right. Here, right? So we can reduce interest rate by printing more and more and more money, but it will have a different repercussions, right? I will, if time permits, I will explain those as well. Right? Any question about the demand and the money supply? There are theories behind that, right? There are a few theories behind that. Now, you basically, I believe everybody has some sort of idea about this demand for money and the money supply, right? I will explain this money supply one by one because there are different monetary aggregates, right? There are different. There are a few theories behind this demand for money, and basically, so this equation provides you this equation provides you this is the price equal is the function of the nominal, the interest rate and the income, real output, right? If interest rate is high, the demand for money is less. If the income or the real output high while interest rate keep as it is, the demand for money is high, right? So this is what I explain in mathematical way. But I believe you will not get a question based on this equation, right? Based on the equation. There's another economics theory called the quantity theory of demand for money, right? So let's have this as an example as well, right? MV equals to PY, right? M means money stock, right? V means the velocity, right? Velocity, what does that mean? The unit of money that how many times that you use during a week, during a year, during a year, right? So we have, let's say, in a different way. Just assume that in Sri Lanka, our money stock is 850 billion, right? 850 billion. But our economy is 15 trillion, right? Using that 850 billion hard cash, using that 850 billion hard cash, commercial banks create money. I will explain it later, right? How commercial banks create money and all, right? So using a 1 rupee to do number of transactions, right? That's why not nowadays, but earlier, people tend to write their names and all on the notes, right? They believe that money will come, that note will come back to their hands again, right? They won't just want to check it because they know that this money is circulating across the country, right? The velocity means how many times that you use the same rupee for transactions, right? In Sri Lanka, the velocity doesn't change every year. The change was very marginal, right? In Sri Lanka, the velocity was around 2.4% level, not percent, 2.4. That means 1 rupee you particularly use for 2.4 transactions a year, right? Got the point? The velocity is how many times that you use this 1 unit of rupee for transaction, right? That's the meaning behind this velocity. Right? Any question? Is it okay? Let me see. Chamara has had a question, right? Pushpa Kumar, I think you answer one of my questions, right? Deposit. Chamara Singh, income has increased, but loans too have increased. Chamara, can you explain? I didn't put, I can't get you. Okay, now I got your point, right? You're trying to say that even though the income has increased, but your liability side has increased, right? That's common for everybody, Chamara. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes, Sampa?
that velocity means that only 2.2 times that 1 rupee is used. After that, it is destroyed.
No, it's very simple way to the simple. No, just assume that you have, let's say, you have 10 rupees, right? You have 10 rupees, and you use that the number of, let's say, you in this small economy, you have 10 rupees, right? That's the total value of money, right? The 10 rupees. Using that 10 rupees, the economy, right? The transaction that you do, let's say you have done 30 transactions, right? Now, that means you have used 1 rupee at least. The velocity is 3 then. The number of transactions divided by the amount what we have, the money what we have, right? So you have used 1 rupee for at least 3 times for transactions. You got the point, Sampath and others?
Yes, that means total amount of money divided by number of transactions.
Exactly, number of transactions. Number of transactions divided by the value of money what you have, the velocity.
Okay.
I will try to in this the tute I don't have that example, but after the break I will show you the simple example using that the velocity and all, right? Give me a minute. Oh, no, it's not sharing. If it is not clear, just raise your voice, right? I'm fine now. I can explain it in a different way. So this is the equation. Unfortunately, you have to remember this equation. MV equal to PY, right? M means the value of the monetary stock here in Sri Lanka, M2B, I will explain it later. Velocity, P is the price level. That means the inflation actually, right? P is the price level, price indices. Y is the output, the size of the economy, or you can say the value of the transactions which happen in the country, right? This is. So now, so you know this is a social science. You do those experiments under different, like it's not the sciences, right? Like the bioscience. You have to have some fixes there. Therefore, we normally believe that the velocity doesn't change, right? You can't change actually dramatically, but under these pandemic condition, it has changed, right? Because you don't do a lot of transaction, but as you used to do, right? Nowadays, you just buying goods and foods, that's it, right? Nothing else. Therefore, velocity has changed now, but in this equation, we take velocity as a constant, right? Also, the output, you can't, in the monetary system, through monetary stimuli, you can't improve the output of a country in the long run, right? So if it is doable, we can simply print money and distribute among people, right? I believe everybody understand me, and it's very clear. If it is doable, what we can simply say, go to the Dilaro, ask Dilaro to print this much of money and equally distribute among people, right? Therefore, the theory says the money cannot enhance the output. Therefore, we keep Y constant, right? Is it clear? Now, just assume we have a money stock 1,500, right? And the inflation is 5%. Let's say 5%. Right? If velocity and the output is not changing, if we put more money into the system, right? That means let's double the money. Now it's not 1,500. Let's say 3,000. To make it equal, what will happen to this side of the equation? The price will also double, because the money cannot create the output alone, right? So this inflation 5% will be 10% by doubling the money stock in the country, right? Therefore,
So can you please explain it?
sure, Chandra. Let me. I will try to explain using an example, because here, unfortunately, Chamara, we don't have the whiteboard and all, since we are delivering the lecture from home. Otherwise, it's easy. Let me try to take an example. Oh, yeah, I got it. Chamara, you can see my slide, right?
Yes.
Example with the example, right?
Yes.
So now this is the MV equal to PY is the equation, right? The overall stock of money, let's say 1,000. The velocity is 2. Let's say output equal to 100. These are just some numbers, right? So MV equal to PT. Now, if I want to get P, I'm just putting P here, and if I divide MV by Y, I will get P. Simple. This is very simple equation, right? MV equal to PT. If I want to get the value of P, MV divided by Y, I get the P. Is it clear?
Yes.
Everyone? I believe yes, right? පැදින් නැත්තම් බය වෙන්න එපා. කියන්නේ MV equal to PT කියන එක තමයි මම මේ MV divided by Y equal P, right? This is very simple way, right? Now I'm trying to double the money supply. So earlier it was only 1,000. Now අපි central bank එක double කරලා money print කරා. Now it's 2,000, right? Others remain unchanged. Basically, V and Y remain unchanged because the velocity doesn't change infrequently, and you can't enhance the output by just printing money, right? Therefore, you just keep those two numbers constant. So 2,000 into 2, that is MV, again divided by 100. What will happen to the price level? It is also double. Chamar, you got the point? So by just printing money, you can't simply improve the well-being of people. You just increase the inflation, right? I will touch that inflation story with couple of examples as well. Chamara, I think you guys know the example of Zimbabwe and Venezuela recently, as well as German, right? In 1920 20s, right? Just after the World War, so in Germany, the governor, because just after a world war, the Germany was a nation without anything, right? So the government didn't have any revenue. What did they do? They asked support from the central bank, right? So they get money, they got money from the central bank. We just print money and lend to the government, right? In 2020, I can't remember exactly the numbers, but I will give some rough ideas, right? In 1920, one German mark was something like one US dollar was 7 German marks, right? In 1921, one German mark was, $1 was 79 something, right? German marks. In 1 year later, that means 1923, $1 was 4,000 something German mark. Because the government didn't have any revenue. They just print money for their day-to-day expenses, right? Day-to-day expenses. They just print. No government revenue, no taxing and all. They just print money. Even for the government servants and for the salary and all the recurrent payments, they made through printing money. What has happened? Looking at the exchange rate, so German was importing, let's say, some maybe rice or some kind of food. So the dollar ekakata tibuna food item ekak. What would be the price in 1923 when the exchange rate become $1 equal to 4,000 from 7, right? So there is a huge increase on prices, right? It's a true story. In 1924, so $1 was 4.2 trillion German marks. 4.2 trillion German mark. Can you imagine, German? It's a huge depreciation, right? So the price, they don't have any, there is no any value for those kind of money printing. That's why if you unnecessarily print money, you will get hot inflation. The prices, because there's no any, the real economy growth, but just printing money will only end up with high inflation, right? That is the true story. That is what exactly happened in Zimbabwe in 2008. Robert Mugabe, if you can remember, he died recently at the age of 95. What he did was the same example of German government. He simply print money for his day-to-day expenses, right? Germany අන්තිමට කියනවා මේ import කරවේ කොළ තමයි import කරේ සල්ලි අච්චු ගන්න කියලා අන්තිමට. import කරපු දේවල් වල 99% සල්ලි අච්චු ගන්න කොළ. So the inflation finally all the multilateral agencies, they stopped calculating inflation. Everybody was a billionaire in Zimbabwe in 2008-9, right? The one payas was 100 billion Zimbabwe dollars. The bread was few trillion dollars, right? So the inflation was billion%, right? No number actually. So that is what this theory explains, Chamara. So if you print more money than the economy required, you ended up with high inflation, right? Got the point? Everybody can understand, I believe. Okay. Then there's another economic theory called Keynes developed this theory, liquidity preference theory, right? So these days, this is also very practical concept, right? This is about the demand for money, right? So I told you, you need money for payments, right? So transaction, right? So the motivation behind your money demand is the transaction motivation, right? So with the income level, you have a positive relationship. Whenever your income goes up, you have more transaction. Chamar kiwane istella me liability side that but when income increases, you increase your transactions as well, right? For campus එකේ අපි 5000 scholarship එක අපිට හම්බ වෙන දේම හිටපු පිරිසක් ඉන්නවා. But once you got your first job, you adjust to your salary. And after the promotion, you adjust to that salary, right? That is how people change their transaction behavior, right? So you need money for your transactions. Then you want to keep more money for any precautionary motivation. If something happens which is not planned or emergency, right? You need little more money than normal times, right? So that is called the precaution motivation. Then you also sometimes you might keep money under speculative motive, right? So what does that mean? Speculative motive. Let me explain it in using an example. You are a banker. You know that the interest rate will go up next week, right? Like this Friday, you sold your car, 5 million. Will you deposit that money in a 3-month FD? Probably not, because you believe that the next week our interest rate will go up by 0.5%. Then you will keep that money with you for a couple of days until the interest rate adjusted upwards. So that is called speculative motive, because you demand money temporary for a certain period, assuming that you can earn more return in the future. Is it clear? Okay. How about having like I know it's bit it's 3:10. How about having kind of 10-15 minutes break right here? Is it okay with everybody? Let's have a tea or some, get refreshed and come back. You guys are with me? Bandara, Sampa?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so I'll keep without logging out. We'll meet 3:25. Now let's move to money, right? So money supply, right? Basically, if there's a question of what is money supply, the simple answer is the amount of money available in an economy, right? At a point of time, right? So generally, if I ask you a question, right, like how much money do you have, right? So what would be your answer if I ask the question to someone, right? So how much money do you have? What's your answer? Any, I don't mind, right? Anybody, any silly answer, it's okay, right? What's your gut feeling? Is it about the hard cash or the money stock?
Hard cash.
Yes, Chandra. In general, if I ask you a question, how much money do you have? But you tend to believe that I'm asking how much money do you have right now in cash, right? So, but in economics, the money supply is not only cash, right? It contains the hard cash as well as the bank deposits, the bank money as well, right? So that is the major difference, right? So if I ask a question from Chamara, he might say, I have 5,000, right? As an economy, we have 850 billion cash issued by the central bank, right? That is the total, the value of the currency in circulation right now, right? But if you look at the banking system, right? Let's say government banks more than 1 trillion asset side, right? So you generally the bank's balance sheets, the money supply is 6 trillion, right? 6 trillion. So using this central bank printed money, the commercial banks has created money. I will touch that, right? Touch it. Uh, there are different the definitions in money, right? There are few different the definitions. The first we have to understand. I explained these things, right? The central bank control the money supply. You know that. Those are these sub-bullets are the different kind of monetary aggregates. Reserve money, or we can say base money or high powered money, which is commonly known as the central bank money, right? Then we have four major money supply categories. We will learn those one by one. Narrow money, broad money, M2, broad money M2B, and the broad money M4, right? First, try to understand the reserve money. Sanchita Mudal central bank money කියලා අහලා තියෙන්නේ, right? Reserve money, high powered money. Basically, the high powered money consists the total currency in circulations, that is that 850 billion amount, and the deposits held by commercial bank with the central bank, right? As you all know, you have to keep a settlement account with the central bank, and you have to maintain a balance in that account, right? I believe you know that name as well, right? Statutory reserve requirement, right? Statutory reserve ratio. So right now we have a 2% statutory reserve ratio. That means each and every commercial bank, out of their rupee deposit liabilities, they have to keep at least 2% with the central bank, right? Whenever you get 100 deposits, the commercial bank has to deposit 2 rupees with the central bank, right? That is the deposit with the central bank. Next, since the central bank is the banker to the government as well, there are few accounts maintained by the government, right? There may be some balances in those accounts, right? Those three major items altogether we call reserve money, or money issued by the central bank, right? So in generally reserve money or high powered money. Based on that, the commercial bank create money, right? So you have to remember the component, basically the currency in circulation and the deposit with the central bank. And altogether, commercial bank deposit, the government deposit, or any financial institutions deposit, right? Got the point? Any clarification? So this is the liability side of the reserve money. This is the liability side of the reserve money, right? So as a banker, you probably know that. So in your balance sheet as well, the personal balance sheet, you have liability side and asset side, right? In the central bank balance sheet also, we have the liability side and the asset side, right? So take an example, the deposit with the central bank, right? The commercial bank deposit with the central bank. Whenever you want to withdraw money, so central bank should be able to honor it, right? So it's our liability because that money is not our money, it's central bank. It's commercial bank's deposit, right? If government needs that money from their account, that is our liability and it's an asset of the government, right? Currency in circulation. So if you have cash, that is your asset, right? Cash in hand. Who has the liability if something happened, right? You will bring that money to the central bank, get it reversed, right? Or if you want new money. So it's the liability of the central bank. So therefore, this equations gives you the liability side of the central bank reserve money. Then what is the asset side? So you also have the liability side and asset side, right? Basically, your depositors are liabilities, your borrowers are assets, right? In the central bank also, this is the liability side. The asset side is the central bank assets. If central bank provide loans to the commercial bank, it's an asset to the central bank. If central bank provides loans to the government, that is an asset to the central bank. If central bank maintain any kind of foreign currency accounts, right, with other central bank, those are assets of the central bank, right? So you know that the central bank manage the country's reserve. Therefore, we have our country's foreign reserves in the central bank, right? Therefore, we have foreign currency assets as well. So whenever we accumulate an asset, we create a liability, right? So now these days it's a significant debate in the market that central bank is printing new money, right? So true, because if this is not a normal condition, the central bank had to print a big amount of money during 2021 and 2020 and 21 so far. A huge sum of money, right? So therefore, the money supply has increased substantially. Right? So how do we print money? How do we print money? The central bank print money by accumulating assets. So how do we accumulate assets? By giving loans to the government, by giving loans to the commercial bank, right? If you can remember, we did both in 2020, right? So in 2021, we provide loans to the government. Whenever we provide loans, we purchase a government security, right? It's an asset to the central bank. We print money. That is what happened 2020 as well. The commercial bank, whenever they want money, they give an asset to the central bank and they borrow from the central bank. That is an asset side of the equation. So when you come into an equation, it says net foreign asset plus net domestic assets, since we have foreign currency as well, right? Any question on that? Is it clear now about the reserve money, how we print money and all? Okay, got it.
Sir,
Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah.
in high powered money, there are three components.
I didn't get some part.
In high powered money, there are three components.
Yeah, the reserve money, high powered money, base money, the same name. So right. So different, even though we have a couple of names, the same idea, the definition, right? it has currency in circulation, deposits held by central bank, that is deposit by the commercial bank, deposit by the government, or any financial instrument, basically the primary dealers, right? So those are the three components in reserve money's liability side. Asset side, we have net foreign assets, we have net domestic assets. Got the point? So even
in high powered money, that means currency held by public and currency held by
banks.
commercial bank at central bank. Those are
Yes, yeah.
okay.
Not the currency held by the commercial bank, by central bank, but the currency in circulation, there are two places. Currency held by public, that means the money that you and me have, right? Then apart from that, in your commercial bank walls also you have some cash balances. That is the currency held by the bank. Currency in circulation has two components. Currency is held by the public, currency held by the banks. Clear?
Currency held by banks and currency held, the three components are currency held by public and commercial bank held deposit at central bank and currency government held deposits at the central bank. Are those three?
The first component, you partly correct. The currency in circulation. Circulation means currency can be held by the public or currency can be held by the banks. So altogether we call circulation, currency in circulation. The money stock that we have printed.
Okay.
Got it. Then I will explain this later, little later, right? Little later. Then I told you that the commercial banks can create money using the central bank high-powered money, right? So I will explain. You have this slide. I will explain it simply, right? Now we have like around 20 people here. If I'm a customer of bank A, right? As an initial deposit, I went to a bank and deposit 1,000 rupees. Right? So now in the banking system, we have 1,000 rupee deposits. What will you do with this 1,000 rupees? The commercial bank has to keep 2% with the central bank. And also the commercial banks have to maintain a sufficient liquidity requirement, right? So right now we have asked bank to at least have 20% liquidity, right? To make the mathematic the example simple, let's say the reserve requirement is 10% and the liquidity requirement is also 10%, right? 20%. That means using my initial 1,000 deposit, a commercial bank has to maintain at least 10% as SRR and 10% as liquidity. That means you can utilize the remaining 80%. That means you can lend to anybody else, right? So now Chamara wants to borrow 1,000 rupees. Let's say he wants to purchase a car, right? So he is also a customer of bank A. He goes to the bank and asks for a loan. Commercial, that particular bank A cannot, the bank can't give the entire 1,000 rupees because he has to maintain that 20% requirement, right? He can only give 80%. That means 800. Okay, bank satisfies and give 800 rupees. What is going to do with that 800? He's going to buy a car, right? Chamil Dilshan is the owner of, let's say, Carmart, right? So Chamara is having an agreement with the Carmart to purchase a car. Now Chamara take that 800 rupees and directly go to the Carmart to purchase the car. Chamil is the Carmart owner He take the money and give the car. Right? Now, Chamil maintain his account with bank B, let's say. Right? So by end of the day, Chamil's accountant, he deposits the bank that money with bank B. Right? Bank B. Now, in the banking system, there is another new deposit of 800 rupees. Right? So let's say now the bank B, that bank also has to maintain that 20% requirement, SRR 10% and the liquidity 10%. So the bank also cannot lend that entire 800, right? The entire 800. Now, how much that can be lended? Only that 80%, let's say 620 something, right? So now then next we have Madhuka. Madhuka is planning to build a house. He wants to purchase a land, right? Madhuka is bank B customer. Madhuka, she goes to the bank and asks for a loan. She can only take 620. Let's say the bank satisfied, gives 620. That is the circle. So using my initial 1,000 deposits, the commercial banking system can create multiple money by lending to customers. I hope everybody understands that simple example. Right? By providing loans, the commercial banks create money using our printed hard cash. Right? That is the story behind money creation. Right? So theoretically, even though I can explain this, just assume that the bank doesn't want to give that entire 800, let's say 700, then the money supply reduces. Right? If Chamara doesn't want the entire 800, but he only wants 700, then also the money supply reduces. Right? There could be a different. If the interest rate is high, Madhuka doesn't want to get entire 620. She likes 500, right? Something like that. So there could be a different other factors as well, right? To determine the total money stock number. I believe still you can hear my voice. It's raining heavily outside. I increase my volume, but let's see. Any question? Is it clear how commercial bank can create money? Yes. Okay. I explained this. Okay. Now, so actually, I will show you another reference. So in the central bank annual report, chapter 8 provides a detailed write-up about this money. There is all the monetary aggregates, right? If you have time, please read. It's available in the website, the Central Bank Annual Report 2020. The chapter 7 provides you the whole story, what I'm teaching today, right? Now, let's move to other monetary aggregates. It's a narrow money. And now, it's about the customers, right? Now, not the central bank, about the customer side, right? So we have a definition of the narrow money is called M1 as well. So in the reserve money, we take all currency in circulation, Sampat. So the current here under narrow money, we only take currency held by the public, not held by the bank. This public's money, right? Currency held by the public plus the demand deposit held by the public. You know what the demand deposit is? Called the narrow money, right? You just want to remember the component, right? If you have any question, just raise, right? This is a very simple equation, right? Then we have M2 broad money. So that is M1. That means the currency held by public plus the demand deposit held by public plus the time and savings deposits held by the public in DBU, domestic banking unit. That is called M2 money supply, broad money M2. Then we in Sri Lanka we also compile another monetary aggregate called M2B, the consolidated broad money. We used to say that it contains M2, that means currency held by public, demand deposits held by public, time and savings deposits held by the public in DBUs, plus adjusted foreign currency deposits held by public in also banking units, OBUs of commercial banks, right? So here up to M2B, we consider only commercial bank, right? So it's very simple. You just add new components into the previous one. M1 is these two components. M1 plus this time and savings is M2. M2 plus adjusted foreign currency deposits called M2B. So that is the simple equation about the money supply, right? After considering the banking system, right? I mean, the licensed commercial bank, we have another money supply called financial service. So M4, right? In Sri Lanka, you know that there are a few other financial institutions, the commercial banks, as well as other financial institutions. Licensed specialized banks and leasing finance companies is also there, right? So leasing companies, they cannot accept deposits, right? Therefore, the leasing companies are excluded in the financial service. So commercial banks, specialized banks, and the finance companies are called financial service, right? Basically the banking system and other financial institutions except leasing companies, right? In M4, what we simply do, then 4 equal to M2B, that is what we learned just now, plus, since the licensed commercial bank, specialized bank, they cannot maintain the current account. They only can take time and savings deposits, right? So time and savings deposits held by the public in licensed specialized bank and the licensed finance companies, once you add that balances into M2B, we call M4 financial service. Is it clear now? We are just adding new component to the monetary numbers, right? Very simple. Right? Is it clear? Any question up to now? Okay, now let's move to inflation. 351. I just touch when I explain the quantity theory of money, I touch about the inflation, right? I know this is a very sensitive topic, right, these days, since we have a pandemic and as well as government just increase the fuel prices, right? It's very sensitive subject. So inflation, what is inflation? Basically, the picture text tells you the whole story, right? The inflation is the value of money, right? Inflation can be explained as a sustained increase a sustained increase in the aggregate or the general price level in an economy, right? So it's not an ad hoc increase, a sustained increase over the period of time. So it basically increases the cost of living. You need more money to purchase what you bought yesterday, right? So you need more money to buy goods, the same goods that you purchased yesterday. So that means your cost of living increases, right? Simply, it's very simple, right? So there are a few ways to measure the inflation, right? In Sri Lanka, we have major two price indices. One is called the Colombo Consumer Price Index (CCPI), and another is called the National Consumer Price Index. Colombo Consumer Price Index, in Sri Lanka, we have Department of Census and Statistics. They have the National Statistic Agency in Sri Lanka. The DCS compiled this inflation and the GDP, domestic economic growth numbers, right? GDP numbers. Colombo Consumer Price Index, the DCS takes the price changes in the Colombo and suburb areas, right? From Paliagar to around Maharagan, right? So they are centers across those areas and they take prices. For some items on daily basis, for some items on weekly basis, and some items on a monthly basis, right? The National Consumer Price Index is include all the 9 provinces in the country, right? There are centers in each district to collect the price movements, right? Normally, the teachers are the major information provider for this, right? Each month, the last working day, the Department of Census, they release this Colombo Consumer Price Index for that particular month. And for National Consumer Price Index is issued for the month of May, will be issued by 21st June, right? So after 3 weeks left, right? So there are what causes inflation. There are basically two factors, right? Inflation arises from a combination of demand pull, right? So when you increase the demand as a consumer, if you increase the demand, it also increase the prices. And also the cost factors, cost push factors. So if there is a flood, then the supply, you can't have the same supply, right? If there is, so now you can see it, right? The fuel price increases, almost all the goods, because of it involved the transport and all, could go up. Why? There is a cost there, right? So that is called the cost push factors. Another category that we can see inflation is adverse inflation expectation, right? Adverse inflation expectation. That means you think that the period ahead, the prices will increase further, right? Prices will increase further. Therefore, to save some money, you want to buy goods and services today to be used in the future. Right? What will happen? Now, very simple example. Just assume that as soon as the people understand that there is a high, let's say, or lockdown or continuation of lockdown, so people believe that the prices will go up. They want to accumulate more goods to survive, right? So if seller knows that story, what is he going to do? Definitely, to make more money, he will increase his price right now, because there is an unplanned high demand, right? So ඒක ලංකාවේ ලකින්න හම්බෙන අවස්ථා කීපයක් තියෙනවා. හිටි ගමන්ම ලුණු, what happened to salt? The prices has increased, right? Now in small retail markets, I even couldn't find salt, right? They don't have, right? The prices has also increased, right? And that is an adverse expectation. People think that it's not going to be a rare item, and people buy lot. Now the prices has increased substantially. Adverse inflation expected. So this is what the demand-full inflation is. Made ourselves, we don't see this demand-pull inflation. You don't increase your demand due to, since you have money, right? You don't do that, right? Nowadays, you try to survive. You are here. So this is a normal circumstance, right? If you have more money, what will you do? Let's say you are getting an unexpected bonus. You will increase your consumption, increases the demand. Then if there is no any increase in the aggregate supply, right? So the supply should increase. Otherwise, to maintain the price level at the same level, right? Price at the same level. In the normal circumstance, if you increase your demand unnecessarily, right? Because you have more money, then it increases the prices. This is exactly what happened in Zimbabwe, Germany, and all, right? Because people had money, right? They just try to accumulate food, other goods and services, but there is no any the production which match the demand, right? The prices increases. Very simple example. This is the cost push inflation. So the fuel price increases. Now what will happen? Supplier, definitely they will reduce because the cost increases, they reduce the supply. But people demand the same amount, right? What will happen? The prices will go up. Prices will go. You can see that. So all means all, even the bakery items, they might increase, right? You can see those the cost push, the inflation reasons very soon. Look at the newspapers from today onwards, right? You will see those all these societies and all who make these bakery items and all. So there will be a heated arguments. Any question? I can't really. Yeah, I hope you can understand, right? Any question? Because this is very sensitive topic as well, right? Inflation. Probably the general doesn't believe on inflation, right?
Sir,
Yes, Sampath, go ahead.
CCPI is released by central bank.
No. All the inflation indicators are released by the Department of Census and Statistics, DCS, which is in the Polduhan next to Dietuyana. Okay, so then we have, I'm not trying to give this is a bit technical, right? Therefore, I'm not going to argue, I'm trying to give you a very basic idea. So there are two ways to calculate the inflation. One is called the headline inflation. Actually, that is what exactly matter for us and you, right? So whenever there is an administrative price adjustment like yesterday, that will have an impact. Import price increases, like say dal, the depreciation, right? So that will have an impact on headline inflation. Now let's say see the weather condition. Now we had the landslide, the flood, right? What will happen to our agriculture product? Probably the prices will go up. And the seasonal demand. These days we couldn't say, but take the new year. What was the chicken price? Notably high, right? Nowadays also it's really high, right? Um, then adverse expectation of inflation. It also have a positive relationship with headline inflation. As I explained you previously, if we print more money than required in the society, it will also lead inflation, right? Those that all together we call headline inflation. But whenever you have a question or if you have a disagreement, probably you blame government, right? The inflation, right? Normally, whatever you blame government. But actually, for inflation, that is the central bank's duty. The central bank objective is to maintain the price stability. That is the key objective, one of the key objectives, right? But looking at this information, you probably can understand that there are factors that central bank cannot control. Adverse weather, administrative price adjustment, uh, uh, the international price developments. Those are beyond our control. Therefore, there's another mechanism to calculate another inflation called core inflation or the underlying inflation. Basically, what we do here is we try to understand this demand pull inflation through core inflation. So where the inflation created by increasing the consumption, that is by increasing the money in the economy, right? So therefore, for policy making decision, for all the policy related matters, rather than looking at the headline inflation, we carefully looked at the underlying or the core inflation as well. Actually, the core inflation gives you the inflation created by money, right? Created by money. This slide shows you the inflation behavior in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, normally, Sri Lanka used to be a high inflationary country. But since 2009, our inflation was maintained below 10% level. That means that this inflation means an increasing, right? So sometimes when I teach this inflation and deflation, people might get caught. The inflation means this is a percentage increase compared to the last year, right? So if inflation remain at 2% level, it doesn't mean that the prices are compared to the last year is low, right? The increase has reduced, right? So if it is deflation only, you can say compared to the last year, you have a low price. So once you see the deflation only, right? Therefore, don't get it confused, right? Inflation, the difference between the inflation and the deflation, right? So these are a couple of photos that I told you that if I found, I will show you. This is Zimbabwe example, right? So this is hyperinflation in Zimbabwe. I told you that the agencies, they stopped calculating. This is 89. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. 89 sextillion. 89 sextillion. So percent of inflation, right? 21, yes. 37 billion, yes. Sextillion, right? So is the Mugabe's zero game everybody was a billionaire, as I told you. So it's pairs, let's say $50 billion. Three pairs is just $50 billion, right? And actually, it created civil unrest, the food shortage, right? And finally, somehow they had to take their currency to dollar, and now it's in the manageable levels these days. And these are some numbers, right? In terms of this is a couple of pictures I took from the internet from Zimbabwe, right? 100 trillion. This is the largest value, the currency note ever printed in the country, right? $100 trillion. So this boy is going to maybe a polar affair. This is this money to purchase a brain. So since basically there is no value, right? You need a garbage bag to withdraw money to go to shopping, right? These are true pictures from Zimbabwe in 2008-9 period. So I found one very attractive board in a Zimbabwe toilet, right? So toilet papers only, no cover, cardboard, no cloth, no Zimbabwe dollars. Right? That means what? So if inflation is high, that means you don't have any value for your currency, right? There's no any value, right? Right. Okay, you got the money inflation. Now let's move to the monetary policy. We have a little time to explain the monetary policy. Right. Now you have a fair idea about the money, about inflation, right? So any question up to now, before I move to the monetary policy and how we put those the individual elements together to see to control inflation or not? Any question up to now? I'm happy to take.
This presentation is not available in this class.
I will share that slides as well, because I was thinking to use the same the tune what we did some time back, but as long as the lecture goes, I thought I had to put a few more. So I will share with Menaka, and he will email you or whatever, upload you these slides as well, right? Any question on inflation and money supply up to now? Okay. Please don't hesitate to raise your voice, right? I don't mind answering any question, right? Okay, then let's move to uh, so what is monetary policy? So basically, to achieve the price stability, we conduct the monetary policy. You guys know that the central bank, the prime objective is having the price stability, right? So actually, let me start on a different note, right? As an individual, you have your objectives, right? To achieve this by this time, right? Likewise, as a country also, we have objectives, right? High economic growth, full employment, low price levels, right? Better external account, right? Those are low poverty. Those are the objectives as a economy. Those are called the macro uh, objectives, right? Macro objectives. To achieve those macro objectives, you have to have policies. Yeah? From the government side, the government has fiscal policy or the budget, right? How income revenue is generated and how their government is going to use that revenue for the betterment of people, right? So that is called the budget, right? So the fiscal policy. In the central bank side, we have the monetary policy, the price stability, targeting monetary policy. Basically, we regulate the financial system as well, right? Using our the tools what we have under the monetary policy, we try to achieve the price stability. Right? Basically, we regulate the cost of money, that is interest rate, and we regulate the availability of money, the money supply, or the liquidity or the credit availability in the economy. Right? So using those two regulating mechanism, right, we want to maintain inflation in this area, right, low and stable level. So it's not. So this is what have in Zimbabwe and Germany. They had high inflation, right? So deflation. This is what is having in Japan these days, the deflation, right? Most of the advanced countries just after the global financial crisis, as well as some even after the pandemic, right? The most of other countries, they are in this region, right? High or volatile inflation or the low and stable. So to maintain inflation at this stage is the prime objective of all the central bank, right? I told you on the quantity theory of money, this is what we learn. There should be a limit on money creation, right? So money circulates at a constant speed. That is why the velocity is, I told you, the constant, right? Generally, it doesn't change. If more money is put into the system, what will happen? If we central bank print more and more and more money than the economy requires, people have more money in their pockets and wish to buy more goods and services. And it results too much money chasing too few goods, right? So we don't have enough goods and services to buy. What will happen? The seller knows that he raises the prices. Money create inflation, right? This is what the Milton Friedman said. Inflation is always a monetary phenomenon. So through money you can create inflation, right? So we learn this, right? So what is the appropriate level of money? The appropriate level of money is the growth of money should be equal to the growth of the nominal GDP. I believe you guys know what the nominal GDP is. You know the real GDP. If you adjust real GDP plus the price movement, the increase in the prices to the real GDP, you will get the nominal GDP, right? Just an example, if you have a coconut tree, land, you have, let's say your production is 10 coconut per year, right? The last year the price was 50 rupees. This year you have the same production, 10 coconut, but the price is 100. Now the coconut, one coconut is 100. So you have just increased your nominal, but you couldn't increase your real GDP because you have the same 10 coconut nuts, right? So even without increasing the real GDP, you can increase the nominal GDP by just increasing the inflation or the price level, right? Therefore, the growth of money should be also equal to the growth of nominal GDP. If we put more money than the nominal GDP, that will create inflation. That is what we learned from the previous two examples, right? Then these are the key policy tools what we use in the central bank monetary policy operations, right? This is a bit technical, but I will try my best to explain you in a very simple way. We have policy interest rate, open market operation. Those are the key monetary policy tools. These days, we also use the moral suasion. Yeah, right? So without giving, what is moral suasion? Without giving any guideline or direction to the banks, we use moral suasion. Likewise, we advise the commercial bank. This is the current development. If you do this, you will get here. But if you don't do this, you will get there. Basically, giving an advice, right, to the banking system. Even for the exchange rate, these days, the central bank use the moral suasion. Otherwise, we can't maintain that exchange rate at this particular level, right? Basically, without any strict guideline, like the direction, by talking to the commercial bank. So we're trying to give a signal or some idea or trend, and that is called the moral suasion. Then there's another monetary policy tools called the statutory reserve requirement, right? Yes, let's learn one by one, right? The statutory reserve requirement, SRR, you know that each and every commercial bank, they have to maintain some share of their deposit, rupee deposit liabilities. That right now is 2%. Other than these key monetary policy tools, we have few other tools as well. One is the bank rate. I believe you have already heard this rate. Bank rate is it can be used as a lender of last resort. You know, the central bank is a lender of last resort for a commercial bank, right? If something happened to a commercial bank, if they can't borrow any money from anywhere else, they have to come to the central bank with a suitable collateral to borrow, right? What is the bank rate right now? Any idea? Anyone can remember? Now the bank rate is linked with the standing lending facility rate. You have to remember that, right? What is the bank rate current? The current bank rate? Yes, please.
8%.
8.5. A standing lending facility is 5.5%. A standing lending facility rate plus 300 basis point or 3% is the bank rate. Whenever our policy rate changes, standing lending facility rate changes, the bank rate also changes, right? Since 2000 up to 2020 April, this bank rate was stuck at the 15% levels, right? There's no any changes to that, but now it adjusts automatically with any adjustment to the standard lending facility. Other than this, the key rates, we also sometimes use quantitative restrictions on credit, the credit limit ceilings, right? In 2012, we had credit ceilings. In 2012, credit to the private sector grew by around 35%. Yes. At that point, the central bank wanted to curtail the credit expansion. What we did was we put a ceiling. The individual banks' growth by end of the year should not exceed 80%, right? So that is how the central bank stop this money creation, right? Basically, by using those the tools, try to achieve the price subject stability objective, right? Ceiling on interest rate also, it's a recently we used it for calling, for predetermined OD facilities to reduce this excessive high interest rate, the credit card interest rate. The central bank, the ceilings are still in effect. The credit card we have 18%. The ODs, great ODs, we have 20% likewise. Pawning is 10%. I think even though the pawning ceiling rate is 10%, most of the banks now the pawning rate is less than 10%, right? Even they have reduced more than what we want. Okay, so let's try to understand the major tools, right? The policy interest rate or policy interest rate corridor. Let me just to make a little interactive. Let me ask a couple of questions since you don't have any questions from me, right? උඹට හිතන්න එපා මම වෙනම මට ස්ක්‍රීන් එකේ පේන කට්ටියගේ තමයි නම කියන්නේ. කැමති නම් කතා කරගෙන තුනන්ට I don't mind, right? So I'm just trying to let's start from Chamara and Sampath who talk to me. Chamara, if you have more money, right? Just assume that you are a banker, right? So you have, by end of the day, you have little more money. That means liquidity. What will you do with that money? Chamara or Sampath or anybody, right? I don't mind. If you have any excess money, yes, sir. So where will you?
In a bank.
I'm asking, you are a bank now. You are a bank, right? Just imagine that you are a bank and you are the head of treasury. You have extra money.
We can lend to some other bank.
You can lend to some other bank. Okay, good answer. Yeah. Any other answer?
But we can deposit to central bank also. We can
Say it again, sir.
Yeah, we can deposit a central bank if it is.
Yes, you're right. So by end of the day, yes, Bandara, go ahead.
Short-term investments,
Yes.
unlike treasury bill, treasury bonds.
Yes, you're right. Let me explain a little more, right? So the commercial banks, as Bandara told, the investment, the short-term investment, or as Sampath said, by lending to another commercial bank. Normally, you do those transactions during the day, right? From morning 8 to evening, maybe 3 o'clock, right? So even after doing all these, the transaction, short-term investment, purchasing government securities, and the lending to other banks, even after doing all these transactions, at the end of the day, let's say for 15, you have extra money. What will you do? Still, let's say you have 1 billion extra money at 415. After doing all these day-to-day normal transactions, what can you do with that money? There's one answer. Dennis, what do you mean by overnight deposits? I know you are there. Overnight deposit with whom?
Interbank transactions?
No, Zaid, I told you, after doing all the transactions, at 4:15 or 4 o'clock, you can't find any lender, right? Can you? Maybe, but at a very low rate. Amir, you got my point?
Yes, sir. I just got the point. Yes.
Yes, Takshila Ratnayaka. Yes. So once you finish with your job, right? That means doing all these, looking at all these avenues, the short-term investment, the treasury bill bond, and all what are the available opportunities. If you still have some balances in your hand, finally you have to come to the central bank to deposit, right? What is that deposit is called? Standing deposit facility rate, SDFR. Right now it's 4.5%. Now you have a point here. So that means whatever the balances you have, you can at least earn 4.5% on overnight basis, right? So that means you don't need to lend to anybody else below 4.5%, right? At the minimum, you can earn 4.5%. Therefore, this standing deposit facility rate set as the flow of the interest rate. Everybody is there? You got the point? In Sri Lankan economy, there shouldn't be any rate below, any commercial bank's rate, below 4.5% because the central bank is there. If you have money, you can park at it. Understanding deposit facility window, you can park any amount of money. There is no any restrictions, right? Billions of money can be parked there and earn a 4.5% return. Everybody's understood? Right. Now, I'm putting the question in a different way now. Now, assume that you don't have money, right? You have got some government securities transaction, you have some investment plans and all. Maybe in the evening, you are short. Let's say 5 billion shortage is there in your balance sheet, right? Cash flow. What will you do? There are few options, right? Let's say around 2, you got to know that you're going to have a short position. Borrow from the central bank at SLFR. Takshila, yes. Before that, you will try to, I think Dennis means borrowing from commercial bank, right? Yes. Yes, commercial bank, that particular bank will try to borrow from a commercial bank, right? Yes, that hasn't. Yeah, I'll take it. But at the end of the day, if you can't borrow from commercial bank, right? What can you do? You basically borrow from the central bank. Right? What is that rate? That is called a standing lending facility rate, right? Standing lending facility. That is 5.5% right now, right? So now you have a point here. You can, if you have any extra money, you can park any amount at 5.5. If you have a shortage, you can borrow from the central bank by providing a security, right? To borrow from the central bank, you have to have a government security, treasury bill or treasury bond, to give as a collateral, right? Keep that in mind, right? Likewise, the central bank also doesn't do it, right? So you have to have a security for that, right? So now, so do you think that could there be any interbank interest rate more than 5.5%? A short-term interest rate more than 5.5%? No, right? Why? Because you can borrow from the central bank at 5.5. If you can borrow from the central bank at any amount, you don't want to go to another party to buy at 6% level, right? Right? This is an overnight market. I'm talking about an overnight market, right? Therefore, so to maintain this, the true interest rate is called policy interest rate corridor, right? Basically, it provides where the market interest rate should be, the idea or trend, right? The direction of the total market interest rates, right? Right. I believe you can see the slide. So this is what.
So in this market, only commercial banks can borrow and then the others can't. No?
Say
Institution.
it again. Some
Other bank, other means financial institution cannot do this.
the financial institutions can't, but the central, the commercial banks and the primary dealers also. Since the primary dealers also having um, having a settlement account with the central bank, they can borrow from the central bank by providing security. Only those, but not the specialized bank. Like they don't maintain an account with us, or the leasing or finance companies.
So until which time the central bank allows this?
4:30 last minute.
4:30.
Yeah, that's the time it the system closes.
Okay.
Madhuka, you want to ask something? I saw someone, Madhuka. Okay. Let me, one second. Give me a second. That is not the correct chart, I think. Let's check here. So this is that policy interest rate corridor, right? The green line shows the standing lending facility, and this red line shows the green line shows the standing deposit facility, and the red line shows the standing lending facility. So any idea about this? The blue line, average weighted call market rate, AWCM, interbank interest rate, interbank call rate. Normally we say call market, call rate. Have you ever heard that rate? You have some idea? Actually, this is our operating target, AWCM, right? So there is a market. This normally and early in the morning. The commercial banks, without coming to the central bank, they borrow from the surplus institutions without providing a collateral. That is basically based on the trust, right? There are some money brokers, they intervene, they find who has, normally they search from both parties, the excess people and the deficit people, banks. So the blue line shows that interbank interest rate, right? Generally, since the commercial bank can borrow at 5.5 and they can deposit at 4.5% level with the central bank, generally this interbank interest rate should be within this interest rate corridor, right? There are these for these behaviors, there are special cases. I will not explain those things, right? There are special rates here. That's why this rate is below the standing deposit facility rate, right? I hope everybody understand, right? So in generally we have 8 monetary policy reviews per year. But in 2020, we had to do very frequent way using generally we have 8 scheduled meetings for the whole year. So this year, the next announcement is on July 8th, right? We know the announcement date, right? So on those days only we make the monetary policy adjustments if you want to make, right? But in 2020, we had unscheduled urgent meetings to reduce the interest rate or SRR, right? So in general, it's 8. You have to remember it, right? Any question on the policy interest rates? It's 450, 440.
So these days, are there any excess liquidity in the market?
Yes, there are. The excess liquidity in the market is around 100, little more than 100 billion, 116 last Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
So, monetary policy review dates mentioned in the central bank site?
Yes, it is there. Let me pull it. So on the central bank website, I think you can see my screen. In the monetary policy advance release calendar here. So July 8, the next announcement. The next August 19, October 14, and 25th December. So it's there. And if you are interested about this, and if you want to learn a little more, or if you, let's say, if you have an interview, and if you want to know about the economic status of the economy, you simply go to the central bank website. Under press, you have monetary policy reviews, right? We had 4 reviews so far during the year, right? If you read one of these, each review we publish around 3-page press release, and also You can see it, right? The video is YouTube. It's also available. This press conference YouTube or Facebook page in the central bank, right? You simply have information, but as I told you, most of people, they don't know where to get those information and all, right? The latest information are available in our monetary policy press release. Okay. Shall I move to other major monetary policy tool? It's very interesting, bit technical, but bit interesting as well, I think. That is called the active open market operations, right? Now, I'll skip this slide. Again, please talk to, don't worry if it is, I mean, if you don't know, I don't care, right? You just need to answer. If you have any extra money, right, as I told you, so you will lend to the central bank, or you will basically deposit with the central bank, right, at 4.5% level, right? And if you want to borrow, you will borrow at 5.5. It's given, right? It's given. Open market operation means every morning the central bank assess the market condition, right? So central bank talk to the commercial bank, because we have the previous days account balances with the central bank. We know your previous day's position, right? Whether you have excess money or you have money shortage, right? We know that. With that information, we inquire from you about your today's transaction, right? We inquire about your today's transaction. Before that, let me put in a different way, right? Now, as Sampath asked me whether we have an excess liquidity of 100, right? I believe everybody understand what the excess liquidity is. Am I right, Amir? Bandare?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Everybody knows what excess liquidity or liquidity shortage is. Am I right, Shamil? කවුරුත් දන්නේ නැත්නම් මට I'm fine, right? මේ කියන්න බය වෙන්නේ නැතුව. මොකද්ද මේ liquidity කියන එක දන්නවද කියලා අහන්න. මට නැත්නම් ඒක දැනගෙන නැත්නම් ඊට පස්සේ විනාඩි 45ම වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ ඒකයි. Okay. See. Okay. Good, Chamil. කවුරුහරි තියෙනවා නම් බය වෙන්නේ නැතුව මේ පේන්නේ නැහැනේ online එකේ තියෙන ඔය තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ මට පේන්නේ නැහැ. මේ ඕන ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහන්න පුළුවන් මම නෙවෙයි වගේ අහන්න පුළුවන් right ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒ හින්දා බය වෙන්න එපා හොඳේ මම මට මොකද even this subject is so sensitive to all of us, but honestly none of our universities, even at the master's level, they don't teach, right? So I went most of our guys went outside to teach, to learn those things, right? I went to US for monetary policy related stuff, right? Once we're doing this, we know it, right? Therefore, don't hesitate to ask questions, right? I will provide my contact details, right? You just drop me an email if it is not convenient, right? So the excess liquidity is something like, now let's say Amir has 5,000 rupees right now. He has 1,000 rupees payment for one of his friend as a loan, let's say loan, right? There are sort of other payments, right? Meal, lunch, entertainment, but end of the day, if we still have 3,000 rupees, that is called excess liquidity because he has more money than his requirement, right? For a bank also, after doing all the transactions, right, all the payments, salary payments, investment, short-term money market, after doing all these money market, all the related transactions, By end of the day, if you have extra money, that is called excess liquidity. If you have a shortage, that is called the liquidity deficit, right? Now, you normally, the treasury people, they assess their liquidity position in the morning. I mean, they forecast their liquidity position in the morning, right? If they are going to have a liquidity deficit, normally the banks, those banks try to borrow from interbank market. If they can't borrow from the interbank market, they come to the central bank, right? So the banks who has extra money, they try to lend from the interbank market because they can earn little a higher return compared to the central bank deposit facility, right? That is the beauty, right? So the even the 1 bit is this is because the market is dealing with billions of rupees, right? Not what is a billion value market, right? The central bank so normally assess this market liquidity condition every day and announce an auction called open market operation to whether to absorb that extra liquidity or inject that liquidity deficit. Let's say, as a whole, these days market is liquid. It's 100 plus billion extra liquidity. But since we are in a pandemic, we don't absorb that liquidity. If we are in a normal operation period, the central bank normally absorb that extra liquidity through active open market operation, right? Under open market operation, the central bank announces an auction, right? We will have a auction, right? To get an idea. So just assume that we have 100 billion extra liquidity, the banking system, right? So we have 25 commercial bank, maybe not all, 15 commercial bank is having extra liquidity, but 10 is having liquidity deficit. But in overall, the banking system is having 100 billion extra liquidity. So I announce from the central bank, we are going to have 100 billion open market operation to absorb liquidity. How can I absorb liquidity? By selling a government security, what we have in my balance sheet. And can you remember under reserve money, we learned that from the asset side, we have net foreign asset and we have net domestic asset. What are the net domestic assets we have? Lending to the government, lending to the commercial bank. How do we lend to the government? By purchasing government securities, right? That is where we purchase government securities. So using that government securities asset, if we sell one of that asset to absorb liquidity, so that is called open market operation, right? So we can sell that government securities on a temporary basis to absorb liquidity. That instrument called repo. We sell the security, take the money, and we agree to release that money in a future day. Everybody understand a repo transaction? Is it clear? I'll take the same example. Amir has 3,000 extra liquidity. I'm having an auction. So I'm giving a 3,000 plus value of security to Amir and take that 3,000 from him. Now, he doesn't have that extra liquidity with him and he has a security instead of money. Now he can't lend that money to anybody else because I absorb, central bank absorb that extra liquidity from the market. You got the point? So now let's have another example on the liquidity deficit level, right? Just assume that the market is having a liquidity deficit, a shortage, 100 billion liquidity shortage. At that point, the central bank has to provide that liquidity. Otherwise, the payment system all collapse, right? Because you don't have enough money to do this transaction smoothly, right? You know, we have RTGS system. It should be very liquid. If you don't have liquidity, the system collapses, right? So we are having an option to pump liquidity. How can I pump liquidity? If I purchase securities from you, right? Now, Sampath is having a 10 billion liquidity deficit, but he still have 15 billion government securities. What he can do? He can temporarily sell his government securities to the central bank and borrow money. Everybody understand? That is called open market operation. Basically, there are few tools under this open market operation. If it is an overnight liquidity position, we do overnight repo options. If the market liquidity shortage or the surplus is, let's say, 5-6 days period, a term or repo or term reverse repo will be done. If it is a permanent liquidity shortage or surplus, we will do either permanent sale or permanent purchase of government securities under open market operation. Is it clear now?
Sir, small question.
Go, yes,
This
please.
is regarding like now. I don't know whether this is correct or wrong.
Yeah.
Now in banks we have this like the call market for the overnight like for excess and deficits. What if
Mhm.
for financial institutions, once if they have this more excess accounts, what will happen for that?
Basically, what they can do is they will also join with the banks, not with this, because we don't have a direct relationship with those institutions, right? They probably can lend to another. Probably that is not happening right now, right? If they want money, they will probably come to commercial bank to borrow. But if they have, they can lend to another non-bank financial institution, but not to the central bank. Under open market operation, we only consider the commercial banks, even not for primary dealers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you. Is it clear for everyone? I'm glad that if it is clear by one shot.
Having excess liquidity doesn't make that system fail. You mean that these days you are not doing that operation due to
Yes.
banking?
Mhm. Yeah, you have a valid point. So that is why that word active is also there. Whenever the purpose is, okay, let's try to understand the purpose, right? If you have excess liquidity, if we don't absorb, now just assume that we don't absorb, what will you do? You basically try to lend at a lower rate, right? You will try to lend at a lower rate, but not probably below the central bank deposit facility rate, right? But these days, right, we want to maintain the market interest rate at a low level because we want to get the economies going on, right? It's very bad economic condition, and the people don't want to invest, right? Then no any expansion in the businesses, right? So this is not common. This is not only for Sri Lanka. Across the globe, all the markets interest rate are at very low levels. So even if you look at other countries, even in India, our peer countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, they pump liquidity in enormous way, right? To maintain a low interest rate, because this is a hard time. So this is what exactly happened in 2007 as well, the global financial crisis, right? So once the economy recovers, we gradually absorb that extra liquidity, because it will lead to inflation then if we don't absorb that, right? Got the point, Sampa? Because even though you have liquidity right now, you have 100 billion, but you don't lend it to the market, right? Because there is no such a huge demand for credit these days.
So in that situation, the banks always have to use that facility, no?
Yeah, these days 100% they're using the standing deposit facility window.
Okay.
The entire extra liquidity is being parked at the under this standing lending. Danish, yes, is reverse repo rate is, yes. Repo means we are accepting deposit, right? A standing deposit. So the repo rate is very close to standing deposit facility rate. So depending on the market overnight interest rate, reverse repo will be decided, but it's not more than the standing lending facility rate. Basically, the open market operations happens between, the rates will remain between this corridor, the standing lending facility and the standing deposit facility rates. Got the point? Okay. So this will give you an example, right? So if central bank sell, that means reverse repo, right? Sorry, repo. If central bank sell, what will happen to the monetary base? We are reducing our asset. Monetary base reduces. If central bank purchase government security, monetary expansion, monetary base increases, right? So under open market operation, there's another special case. If we don't have any government securities under our balance sheet, right? What will happen? How can we do open market operation? The monetary law says the central bank can issue its own securities to conduct the open market operation. So basically, the central bank will issue its own securities to reduce the liquidity in the market or monetary base. And once it's matured, the monetary base will be increased again, right? That is the simple answer for that. Then we have SRR, statutory reserve requirement, right? The fraction of bank deposits maintained at the central bank, right? Right now it's 2%, right? So that is, we reduced that from 5%. Last year, 2019, it was 5%. Now it's 2%. So take that in a very simple way. Earlier, you have to deposit 5 rupees out of each and every 100 rupees. Now what you have to do is, you have to deposit only 2 rupees. That means you have 3 more rupees where you can use that money to lend, right? You can create new money using that. So that is why the money multiplier increase. Money multiplier means that the stock, that is the M2B, the stock value of money divided by the reserve money, right? That is money multiplier. So if you want the equation, please write it down. Money multiplier equals broad money M2B divided by reserve money, right? So whenever we reduce the SRR, the country's money supply increases. When we increase the SRR, country's money supply reduces. Right? So we use those tools to achieve our price objectives, right? Price stability objectives. Now, we are almost there, even okay, we are well hit the time, right? So there are few rules of thumbs on conducting the monetary policy, right? Before I move any question up to SRR or tools, any question on monetary policy tools? I did not discuss about the margin deposits here, just to make sure. We also use margin deposits as well. In 2018, we after the CV, I mean the vehicle price. I think government reduced the in the budget. It reduces the vehicle prices using a different mechanism to value the vehicles, right? Then we had to the central bank had to intervene to reduce the vehicle import, because the vehicle imports increased by more than 100%, right? So a country like Sri Lanka couldn't afford, and as a result in 2018, if you can remember, our exchange rate depreciated by 16.4%, right? So even 2020, with this kind of huge crisis in the world, our depreciation was only 2.6%, thanks to the import controls, right? We had to control imports since 2020 March, right? Therefore, the margin in 2018 we use this margin deposit amount, right? So whenever you want to open an LC to purchase a vehicle, you can put that the purchaser, the customer, has to maintain 100% deposit with the commercial bank, right? So it reduces the import, right? So 100% means if you want to buy a 10 million car, you have to bring a 10 million, you have to keep 10 million in your account since the opening of the LC account till you get it cleared, right? So in 2018, we had the 200%, right? That means if it is 10 million value of car, you have to maintain 20 million value in one account without interest pay, right? So it's a huge cost for customers. So the import reduced drastically, right? Those are the margin deposits. Okay, now I believe you can understand these rules of thumb. Inflation, if inflation is high, so what should we do in the monetary policy? Those are rules of thumb, right? Just forget about the rest. So why we should raise interest rate if the inflation is high? Take the bird view, right? If inflation is high, we raise the interest rate, that make costly to borrow money. You will reduce your transactions, you will reduce your investment, you will reduce your consumption, because so basically you reduce your borrowings, right? Because you have to pay high interest rate. And normally with the time lag, countries' inflation pressure declines, right? Why? You don't demand more goods and services because it's costly, right? Naturally, the prices start to decelerate, right, to a certain level. So that's why whenever you have high risk of inflation, you have to raise the interest. But if you delay until the inflation arises, it's very hard to control. Therefore, the central bank, you have to be more practical. You have to adjust your policy rates well in advance by in 2000. So if we see inflation pressures in 2022, we have to adjust our policy rates from 2021 itself. Normally, the time lag is around 12 to 18 months. Right? Therefore, the central bank normally takes the monetary policy actions looking at the future, the projects, right? The estimates, projections, right, on inflation. If inflation is low, like these days, our inflation relatively, even though there's a slight uptick, around 5% level, less than 5, but that is what we want to maintain at 4 to 6% level. That's our target, right? The last month it's 5%, right? So if we see inflation pressure in the future, right, we have to increase the interest rate, the policy interest. If we see a low inflation in the future, we have space to lower the interest rate. That's why we were able to lower our interest rate since 2019 mid. Now it's at historical low, all the rates, right? Lending rate, historically low level. Deposit rate, most rates at historically low levels, right? How about the economic growth? Overheating economy. What does that mean? Overheating economy means, I think the guys know, overheating car, vehicle, right? If you speed, right? So probably your car will get overheated, right? So likewise, if an economy also, there is the technical word called a potential economic growth. That means an economy can grow to a certain extent, right? Utilizing its all resources in the normal condition. But if an economy grows more than, let's say, the potential economic growth, it can crash, right? It can crash. So therefore, if the economy is overheating, you have to cool it down. So what the best tool is, raise the interest rate. Then it increases the cost of fund, reduce the unnecessary investment, and it's cool down the economy. Right? Nowadays, what we are having, 2020 growth was 3.6% negative contraction, right? Very low economic growth. For consecutive last 5 years, we had maximum up to 4.5% growth. We used to have around 7%. China, 7%. India, 7%. Bangladesh, more than. Other than Afghanistan, we are at the lower levels, right? Right. So therefore, for continuously, we are having a really low economic growth. Therefore, we have space to lower the rate. That's why we are maintaining the interest rate at low levels right now, right? Inflation relatively remain low. If inflation picks up, then the rates will go up. Probably we should, because the main the issue is the growth. We don't have any growth, right? There are some countries, they looked at the exchange rate as well, right? I believe you know there are different exchange rate regimes. The fixed exchange rate, that is the exchange rate, the domestic exchange rate is fixed with the dollar, right? In 1997, 19 to 97, yeah, 1970 to 77. We had fixed exchange rate, some period there are, right? Even after that, we had the fixed exchange rate. So, and then we have managed floating within the band. it allowed to float and fully floating. Floating exchange rate, right? Now we have flexible inflation rate. Generally, the exchange rate is determined based on the demand and the supply of the foreign exchange, right? Any idea about the central about the exchange rate depreciation in Sri Lanka recently? Any insight information for you from you? I believe everybody has seen, let's say, um, uh, these days I think it's the mango. It's very common in everywhere, right? 1 kilogram is around 150 to 200 kartakolamba, right? So, but there are periods the 1 kilo of kartakolamba is more than 400, right? ඔයිටත් වඩා හොඳම example එක තමයි Chile. Chile, there are some periods that cost the 1 kilo is more than 1,000, but there are some periods time 1 kilo of chili is less than 100 or 200, right? Why? If there is an excess supply, price reduces. Is there an excess demand or supply shortage, right? Normally you don't eat more chili in an end. Normally it's the supply side factor. If there is less supply, the price increases. That simple theory applicable in foreign exchange as well. So we demand foreign exchange for our imports. We supply foreign exchange through exports, remittances, tourist earnings, FDI. Those are the foreign inflows revenues to the country. Those are the foreign currency supply, right? In 2020, right, we didn't have any tourism, right? Less than millions, right? We didn't have any foreign direct investment, large foreign direct investment. Right? Only thing what we had was remittances, around more than 7 billion, right? So if we don't receive dollars to the country, but still we are importing, right? We're importing vehicles, we're importing our day-to-day essentials, right? You need dollars for that. Right? If you demand dollars, then the supply, what will happen to the price? Depreciate, right? That means price increases. That means the $1 price increases, right? In terms of exchange rate, it's Sri Lankan rupee depreciates, right? That is the basic idea. And if you are having managed floating exchange rate regime, right? If exchange rate is depreciating excessively, right? What you should do, you just raise the market interest rate, make it costly. Then the importers will reduce their imports, right? Will reduce the import because it's very costly for them. Normally they borrow from the banking system and convert into US dollars for imports, right? If the exchange rate is appreciating more than what we want, we lower the interest rate. Appreciating is not good for the exporters, right? Lower the interest rate, right? They can borrow at lower rate, they produce more and export more, right? So basically those are the rules of thumb. Any question up to now? I think we covered almost everything. These slides give you, let me put it. These slides give you the whole holistic view of our monetary policy mechanism. The policy interest rate. It affects the market interest rate. It affects the asset prices of the market. It affects the market expectation. It affects the exchange rate, right? Through different channels, finally it affects the inflation through the real economy. This is the holistic view about the monetary policy. Okay, I think we are there. Yeah. Now the floor is yours. We have around 10 minutes for any questions or any clarifications. Only few of you were talking. I would like, if you have any question, concern, I'll take. Otherwise, you can just drop me an email, or my email goes as Janaka, Janaka, at cbsl.lk. Janaka at cbsl.lk. So you have a simple clarification required, you can WhatsApp me. Whenever I have a chance, I will respond.
I have a question.
Yes, Sampath, please go ahead.
When you project the inflation, what factors do you consider usually?
Great question, Sampath. Basically, when we are projecting the inflation, there are few factors that we can take. We know the globally we are getting global market updates on a regular basis, like global oil price projection, commodity price projections, gas, all kind of the projections are there in that text, a very lengthy data sheet, right? And we know about our monetary policy stance, and we know money and credit expansion. And also we take the government, the planned fiscal path. In generally, it varies, right? You know, government was planning to achieve, if you take 2020, you want to have 9% deficit, right? But ended up with 11.1%, right? You know that. So likewise, there could be some variation, but still we are taking the government fiscal path as well. And the import-export, the components, whenever we put restrictions, there is in fact, there is a tendency to control imports, like we, as we saw in 2020. The key macroeconomic variables we normally project, the factors basically which affect the inflation, normally we project, and based on those analysis we project the inflation for the future. I'll try to show you one of our one of our old monetary policy press release where we publish actually inflation expectation. 2000. Yes, I got it. 2020. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. So this is 2020 January. Unfortunately, after that, due to this COVID-related stuff, we can't actually. It's very dynamic these days because this is our inflation projections, right? We want to maintain inflation at 4 to 6% level. And then this is the band. This is how the central bank project on the published inflation projections through the fan chart. It's there in the central bank press releases, right? Monetary policy press releases. I know that as bankers, you normally try to repeat or study at the last minute. So whenever you have the exam, if you can't remember those things, just don't hesitate to drop me an email, right? I will help you. I'm more than happy to assist students in succeeding their career path, right? So don't hesitate to do it. Okay, if anybody doesn't have any question, we can wind up the session. I know it's a long day, almost 4 hours, and thank you very much for your kind attention, and I enjoy as well.